Alrighty, what I want to do for you guys now is soft hackle, just a standard soft hackle, but I'm going to be doing tying it in a composite loop, or using a composite loop when I'm tying it. And just for some added weight to it, I'm going to be using a bead. This is a Moonlit ML051 in a size 12, and I'm using a 2.7 millimeter tungsten bead. So these are them. Equivalents for the 51 would be like TMC 2487 and or Daiichi 1130. So the easiest way I've found to load a bead is to I grabbed a hook with a pair of flat nose pliers, and then hold the bead, and then you want to go small hole first, like this, to load it. Yeah. And I'm positioning the hook a little bit in a downward position. Yeah. So I'm just going to start this. I'm not going to add any additional weight. Just the bead alone would be fine. So I'm just going to start my thread kind of behind the bead and move up to about that position right there. And for the thread, I'm using the same. It's 12-aught nano silk in brown. But color's not really that important, so whatever color you want. And for the dubbing, I'm going to be using just a hair's mask. I'm also going to be using some ice dubbing with this too. For the composite loop, it'll be a hair's mask, ice dubbing, and soft hackle. This is a Whiting's Brahma hen. It's real similar to a grizzly or to partridge. So partridge would be the equivalent. You could use partridge if you wanted to as well. That's the whole reason why I bought this particular one, is because I wanted the partridge colors with a longer fibered, longer stemmed feather. So that's why I bought this. So right now, what I'm going to be doing is the fur on the mask is important to get the colors you want. So you're going to have darker colors up here on the ears, and lighter colors down here on the cheeks of the mask. And it's important to know that when you're trying to get different colors. There's about, I don't know, 5 or 6 different colors on this one mask that you can get out of it. So what I'm going to do, and this is just a scraper, a dubbing scraper, and I'm using this to get some of the dubbing out. So I want some of the darker stuff from the ears, so I'm just scraping some of that fur and underfur out on the ears. And then I'm going to take some of that dubbing and do what's called carding or preening. And I'm going to take that fluff, and I'm just going to pull it apart and then stack it up on top of each other, like this. And what I'm doing is lining up those fibers so that they're all crossways instead of all jumbled. And then I'm just going to set that on my on the table clip of the Pedagine tool. Now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of ice dubbing. Just a little bit goes a long way, and this one happens to be like a peacock color, and it doesn't take very much. Just a couple of just a few strands of the ice dubbing. Not all ice dubbing is the same, so some of it, this stuff from Semperfli is longer strands, so what I'm doing is just taking a few strands and then I'm going to pinch them and break them into smaller pieces. Hairline's ice dubbing or standard ice dubbing that you buy in the packages, it's not as long of stranded as this stuff is, so you probably don't have to do this if you're using standard ice dub from Hairline. So I'm going to take that that ice dubbing and put it on right up on top of the hare's mask dubbing, and I'm going to blend them. So what I've got is hare's ice, hare's ear and ice dubbing. No, and you can see it's not very much, it's pretty subtle. And then I'm just going to put that back on my table clip. Now for the feather I'm going to use this this Brahma hen, and I'm going to choose a feather that has, I don't know, not too long of fibers, but not too short either. So about like this. And then like with any of the soft hackles, you want to get rid of the fluff and the and I'm just going to take this piece right here like this, and then I'm going to hold the tip and then stand these fibers up 90 degrees from the stem. Like this. And then what I'm going to do is, because this is too many fibers for the soft hackle, I want it to be pretty sparse. So what I'm going to do is, holding the tip, I'm just going to strip that top side off. So I've got this. And then I'm going to introduce that onto the hare's ear and ice dubbing in the table clip. So I got this. And then, like with the CDC, remove both ends on the table clip and make it flat. And then come over the top with the clip and just get everything together like this. So what I've got is soft hackle, a hare's ear, and ice dub all in one clip. And then I'm going to remove the stem of the soft hackle. But before I do, what I'm going to do is these Magic Tool clips are transparent, and they are transparent so that you can measure hackle length. So by doing this, I'm going to trim this fiber not directly next to the stem, but I'm actually going to cut it at an angle because I want those fibers to be, I want those fibers to go exactly to the length I want it when I'm actually going to use it. So you can see I've taken that out, and see, you can see that right there. So that's the length. So that's the length of hackle I want for this size of hook. I'm just going to set that to the side.
So is the hackle length the gap width, or?
Yeah, I'm looking. I don't want to go too much further past the gap of the hook. I want it to be about the gap, or maybe the length of what the body is going to be. If it's too big, I mean, you'll get a lot of movement, but I think that kind of hinders. Maybe I don't know if the fish are going to care. I really don't. It's just a personal preference, I guess. So from here, I've got my hook kind of angled down in the vise, and I did that on purpose so I can still reach the end. So, but my thread wraps are about the middle of the shank, and what I'm going to do now is prepare the thread for a dubbing loop. So once again, and I'm going to do a counterclockwise turn to flatten the thread. And then I'm going to split the thread. So I got that thread split and ready to go. And then I'm going to introduce this, my composite loop into the split thread. But I'm not going to put it up close. Because I'm going to do what a new technique that I'm kind of working on. I'm calling it a compound loop. Because what I've got here is a composite loop, and then I'm going to compound that by adding more dubbing in an actual loop. So I'm going to close this up by a clockwise turn to seed in my composite loop. Okay, now I've got that, I'm pinching my thread, and now I'm going to do what's called touch dubbing. You guys familiar with touch dub? So now what I'm going to do, I've got my composite loop down here, and now I'm going to touch dub up in front by putting a little bit of wax on the thread up front. And now I'm going to take some more of this hare's ear, but I'm going to take it from the cheeks because I want a different color for the abdomen than I do the thorax area. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that hare's ear, and I'm going to touch dub up in front, real sparse. Now what I'm going to do is take my dubbing loop tool. This happens to be a Stonefo dubbing spinner, but you can use just a standard hook tool. And then I'm going to make a dubbing loop. And then bring my thread all the way to the front. And now what I'm going to do is spin up those. So what I've got now is what I'm calling a compound loop. So what I've done is I've made a composite loop down here, and I've made a standard dubbing loop here, which is compounded into one loop. And now I'm going to tie the fly basically with this loop. So and that's why I've stopped my thread down here and I didn't touch dub all the way up, is so that now I can bring my thread down to where I want it to start on the hook. So that's about right where I want it to start. And then I'm just going to do touching wraps. Forming the abdomen. Okay, now I've got about a bead's width left from the bead, and that's where I want my compound loop to start, or my composite loop to start. I'm just going to bring these materials back, kind of fold these back, and then continue on doing the collar of the soft hackle right up to the bead. And then I'm just going to tie that off. Couple turns in front, couple turns in back. This nano silk is pretty slick stuff, so got to make sure things are tied down really well. And just going to remove that loop. And now I kind of misjudged this a little bit, so I have a little bit of a space left up front. So all I'm going to do is take some more of this hare's mask and just fill in right behind the bead. Just dub it on by hand. You don't want very much though, just a small noodle, just to fill that slight gap. Right behind the bead, and then I'm just going to whip finish right here, right behind the bead. I do a couple of them. All right, that's it. So it's a buggy, super buggy. It's basically just a beaded hare's ear soft hackle. But how I've done it is the tricky part, is the special part.
Did you fish that as a tooth fly?
Yeah, I mean, you fish it as just any standard nymph, or because it has the bead, it'll sink pretty quick, so faster than a standard soft hackle with the bead on it. You can do it without a bead. In fact, I've got several versions of this where I've reversed the hackle to face forward as a tenkara fly. So using this same technique in a compound loop.